Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Pergi kamu dari kampung ini.
At the beginning of the movie, we see Lela and her mother Siti, who is a mortician. Siti has brought Lela along to teach her the work, but as soon as they lift the cloth covering the corpse, Lela feels nauseated by its condition. Siti calms her down and then begins to bath the corpse. After this, when they turn the dead body, Lela is horrified to see the marks on its back and tells her mother that these wounds look like lash marks from a whip. Siti tells her to respect the deceased, and as she begins to continue with the preparation, the corpse suddenly opens its eyes. We then see the village celebrating the circumcision ceremony of Mrs. Ida's grandson, whose mother works abroad, and during this time, Siti notices that Mrs. Ida looks a little worried and scared. After the celebration is over, Lela arrives to pick up her mother, and here it is revealed that, like her mother, Lela can see omens as well. On their way back home, Lela and Siti are joined by Arif, Siti's son, and Siti mentions that the chief has repair work on rental houses for him. Lela tells him to find a more serious job, but Siti says to let him do whatever he wants. Just then, he sees Rika and leaves there with her to fix her rented house. Later, as Siti begins to pray, she hears some noises from outside the house. She checks out the window but doesn't see anyone there. She returns and resumes praying, but during this, a demonic entity appears behind her, repeating the prayers with her. Siti continues praying, and the entity disappears. But just then, Lela unintentionally scares her by appearing suddenly. Lela wanted to learn makeup and was planning to pursue it. However, when Siti asks her if she doesn't want to be like her, Lela gets upset and goes to the kitchen to wash the dishes. Siti opens a food packet and finds it rotten. She instructs Lela to close all the doors and not let anybody in. Confused, Lela asks her where she is going, but Siti doesn't respond. And as she opens the door to leave, they hear an announcement that Mrs. Ida has passed away. Siti reaches Mrs. Ida's house and is shocked to see that Ida has died a tragic death. She asks everyone to prepare everything, stating that she will wash Ida's body herself. Meanwhile, Lela wakes up hearing some sounds, as if someone is walking on the roof. Perplexed, she gets up to check, and only then the roof breaks and falls down. Just then, Arif arrives home, and when he asks what she is doing, she tells him that the roof collapsed. After a while, when Siti returns home, she collapses, and Lela and Arif rush to help her and get her in. Later that night, Lela finds her mother trying to burn something. She approaches and asks her why she is up, to which Siti asks for her help. Lela sets up the fire, and Siti takes out some blood-soaked clothes from a bag. Lela notices that the clothes belong to Ida and asks what happened to her. Siti tells her to be quiet and explains that when you wash a corpse, you must burn everything and not let curiosity get the better of her. Lela takes the bag from her, saying she will burn the rest and asks her to go back to bed. When Siti comes inside, she is terrified to see her own horrifying reflection in the mirror. Later, Lela returns to the room and lies on the bed, but when Siti asks if she locked the door, Lela doesn't reply. Siti turns and is shocked to see that Lela is not there. Just then, Lela enters the room, sits on the bed, and lies down next to Siti. Siti apologizes to Lela, saying she is the reason she had to go through all of this. She tells her that each person has their own role in life, and then she turns to the other side to sleep. Later, Siti hears some strange noise in the house, and when she looks up, she is terrified to see a demonic shadow coming towards her. And before she can understand anything, the entity chokes her and kills her. The next morning, when Lela wakes up, she is horrified to find her mother's dead body lying beside her. Hearing her screams, Arif rushes in and is equally shocked to see their mother's lifeless body. Later, all the people of the village gather at their house, and Tuti tells Lela that it's getting late and asks if they should wash her mother's body. Anya also advises her not to wait too long. Outside, the chief asks Arif how his mother died. To which Arif replies that his sister told him she had a hemorrhage as there were no wounds and no one had entered the room. Lela gets ready to wash her mother's corpse, and as she begins, she is horrified to see her mother's eyes wide open, which were closed some time ago. She tells her mother to accept her death and requests her to allow her to wash her. Lela then closes her mother's eyes again and also closes her own eyes, remembering her mother. After a while, she feels as if her mother is holding her hand and telling her that washing the deceased is an honorable job. The last human the deceased encounters is the meditator before they reach the Almighty. City's spirit helps her to wash the corpse, and after a while, when Lela finishes, City's mouth opens. Lela is shocked to see something inside it, and when she pulls it out, she is horrified to discover that it is a piece of barbed wire. Next, we see that Siti has been buried, and one by one, everyone leaves after offering their condolences to Lela and Arif. Later that evening, Anna visits Lela and gives her the condolence money from the villagers, and she asks if Lela doesn't mind if they combine the prayer for Mrs. Ida and her mom. Lela agrees and goes inside, but other neighbors are shocked to see blood on Siti's bed. They ask Lela how she died, but Lela shuts the door and locks it. Later, when Arif is checking his tools, Lela says he doesn't seem sad at all, and he even refused to wash Mom. Arif simply gets up and leaves with his toolbox, and as Lela continues to wash her mother's bedsheet, she is shocked to find another piece of barbed wire in the water. However, when she tries to take it out, it vanishes. Siti's friends discuss why this is happening at the same time. They wonder if, since Siti and Ida were best friends, their times of death are also close. Terry says she has suspicions, feeling that it is all too strange, and wonders if they were cursed. Anna tells her not to talk nonsense, and suddenly Terry accidentally cuts her finger, and her blood gets on their photo. That night, while everyone in the village is praying for the peace of Ida and Siti's souls, a demonic hand picks up a prayer book. Terry hears a demonic voice reciting prayers, but she doesn't see anyone there. The next moment, Ida and Siti's ghost whisper prayers in her ears, and she screams, "I don't want to die." The chief tries to calm her and everyone else down, saying it looks like the entire village has lost power, and suggests using candles for now to finish the prayers. They light the candles and continue the prayers. This time, Lela sees the ghosts of her mother's friends sitting among the villagers. She becomes confused and scared because she can see Anna's ghost, even though Anna is sitting in front of her, reciting prayers. Suddenly, Anna's ghost haunts Lela, and just then, the lights come back on. Later, when Lela returns home, she is shocked to see her mother praying in the house. However, as she approaches her, the prayer gown falls to the floor. Scared, Lela picks up the gown, but then she steps on a piece of barbed wire. In pain, Lela removes the piece from her foot, and only then does her mother's ghost appear. Meanwhile, Anna is talking to her son Bimo, who has gotten a job outside the village. During their conversation, she gets scared when she sees a ghost peeking from a room. Bimo asks her, "What's the matter?" To which she replies that it's nothing. After Bimo leaves, Anna goes to check the room, where the door of a wardrobe opens on its own. Perplexed, she enters the room, but the door suddenly shuts. Anna tries to open it, but finds it locked. But as she turns away, the door opens again. Confused, Anna moves forward to check, and suddenly demonic hands grab her. Bimo rushes there, hearing her screams and finds her vomiting blood, and the door shuts as he tries to enter. But when he manages to break in, he discovers her mother's dead body there. Later, the chief asks Arif where Lela is, mentioning he called her, but she isn't answering. Arif goes in to find her and tells her that people are waiting for her to start washing the body. She expresses her fear, to which he responds by reminding her that she washed her mom's body alone yesterday. So why is she afraid now? She gets up and locks the door, saying he won't understand. Later, Bimo arrives and pleads for Layla's help, but she does not respond to him either. Meanwhile, Drajat, a police officer, tells the chief that it's now the third incident and asks if no one is going to report it. The chief says their families refuse to which Drajat asks if can he see the body? The chief asks Bimo if he is okay with it, to which Bimo responds that his mom's death had nothing to do with the cops since it's not a murder. Drajat expresses concern, noting that this marks the third death, and suggests that if anything suspicious arises, they could send the body for an autopsy. However, Bimo refuses, stating that he will wait for Lela to bath his mom. Meanwhile, Lela hears Anna asking for her help, and as she opens her eyes, she is terrified to see Anna's ghost in front of her, which disappears the next moment. However, when she turns, she is startled to see the ghost there again. Arif arrives and asks her what's the matter, but she remains quiet. Arif tells her that he was at Bimo's house and Rajat wanted to check Anna's corpse, but Bimo wants her to wash the body first. Lela asks how Anna died, to which Arif replies that Bimo told him she vomited blood before she died, similar to their mom. Lela prepares to leave the house to wash Anna's body and instructs Arif to close all the doors and not let anyone in while she is gone. Next, we see Lela at Bimo's house preparing to wash Anna's corpse. But before she begins, she checks inside Anna's mouth to see if there's also a piece of barbed wire there. Finding nothing, Lela starts washing Anna's body. But suddenly, Anna's corpse sits up and begins tapping her stomach with her hand. And when Lela checks there, she discovers a barbed wire coming out of Anna's stomach. Scared, Lela carefully pulls the wire out, and Anna's corpse collapses onto her. Lela lays her back down but is shocked to see that Anna's eyes are open. She tries to close them, but they keep opening despite her repeated attempts. And suddenly Anna holds her hand and asks for help. Later, when Anna's body is being carried away for burial, the chief tells Terry that Drajat wants to ask her some questions. He inquires if she had any recent problems, arguments, or animosity with the deceased, to which Terry responds that she wasn't that close to them, so he shouldn't ask her. The next day, as Bimo prepares to move out of the house, he tells Lela that he saw it happen and no one was there, but there was something strange. She asks what he means, to which he tells her that before her mom died, she called his name Noor, and it wasn't the first time. He then shows her some photos and asks if she remembers their trip to the botanical garden when they were kids, and in the image, he points out Noor. Lela asks where Noor is now, to which Bimo explains that it's been a long time since Noor left the village when they were kids. They used to be very close, but something happened, something related to his late father and the other husbands in the village, though he's not entirely sure what. When Lela comes out, Terry approaches her and confides that something seems off about the deaths of Anna, Ida, and her mother. She mentions there was blood everywhere, and she is convinced it's a curse. Later that night, Lela goes to the graveyard and digs up Ida's grave. She searches her body and finds a barbed wire coming out of her thighs. Scared, she carefully pulls it out, but suddenly, she finds herself surrounded by many ghosts, slowly moving towards her. Terrified, Lela manages to climb out of the grave and runs away. The next morning, it is announced that someone disturbed Ida's grave last night, and all the villagers are asked to report their activities from that night. Later, Lela visits Ida's house to learn more about Noor. She encounters Tootie there and asks her about Noor. Tootie reveals that Noor was evil and has ruined everyone's marriage. But before she can elaborate further, Tootie suddenly hears a demonic whispering that unsettles her deeply. She begins to scratch her own face and peels off the skin, terrifying Lela. Lela pleads with her to stop, but then she realizes that Tootie has come up behind her, and Lela is shocked to see that there is no one else there. Tootie asks Lela what she's doing there, but Lela, in turn, asks Tootie what she knows about Noor. Tootie responds by mentioning that someone disturbed Ida's grave and suggests they leave her house. Meanwhile, Arif finds a spade under Lela's bed, and just then, Lela arrives. He asks her if she dug up someone's grave, to which Lela responds that she needs to find out why their mom kept Ida's death a secret. Arif suggests reporting it to the police, but Lela says this issue has nothing to do with the police. She shows him the barbed wire she found inside her mom's mouth and in every other corpse, suggesting they were cursed. Just then, they are distracted as they see Terry running away from the scene. Later, Terry tells a woman that Ida, Sidi, and Anna died from a curse. The woman shares this with others, and they visit the chief to express their concerns. But he suggests they calm down and don't think about it. But this news spreads throughout the village. That night, Lela confronts Terry for spreading gossip about Noor. Terry defends herself, but just then, Drajat intervenes and asks what's going on. He advises them that if there's anything concerning, they should inform him first. Lela questions what the police can do about it, to which Drajat reveals that Noor is dead. She was a widow with a daughter who might be around Layla's age, but she died by suicide. Lela asks where Noor's daughter is now, to which Drajat asks her to come with him and advises her that if anything else comes up, she should come to him rather than acting alone and being reckless. After Drajat leaves, Lela confronts Terry again, but to her horror, Terry makes a demonic voice and the door closes by itself. Terry, seemingly possessed, pleads with Lela for help and reveals that she was accused of stealing their husbands and ruining their families. Lela realizes that Terry is possessed by Noor's spirit, and Noor shows Lela how those women in the village accused her of being a homewrecker and asked her to leave. Lela pushes her aside, refusing to believe her pleas. Noor continues to insist that she is innocent, but Lela harshly tells her she deserved to die and commands her to leave, and after a while, Noor leaves Terry's body. Later that night, while Lela is sleeping in her house, a demonic shadow approaches her. It begins to strangle her, causing Lela to choke and appear to succumb to death. The scene transitions to them taking her body for burial. However, suddenly Lela wakes up and begins screaming for help. It turns out she was dreaming, and she wakes up for real. Lela sneaks into Rika's house and discovers a broken tile on the floor. When she removes it, she finds some photographs hidden inside. As she examines the photographs, she realizes they are of her mom and her friends. And to her shock, she discovers that Rika is Noor's daughter. Meanwhile, Tootie gets attacked and killed by the demonic entity. On the other hand, when Lela reaches Terry's house, she finds her praying. Lela approaches her and explains that everything is connected to Noor and that she has evidence. However, to her horror, Noor's ghost takes the form of Sati and her friends and shows Lela their conversation, revealing how they accused Noor of seducing their husbands. Just then, Lela hears the announcement that Tootie has passed away, and Noor says that these are their sins and not to make them hers. Next, Lela visits Tootie's house to wash her body, and there she finds a barbed wire in Tootie's eyes. As she tries to remove it, Tootie suddenly wakes up and sits up on the table. Horrified, Lela watches as a barbed wire crawls inside Tootie's arm and then emerges from her mouth. Lela pulls the wire out, and at that moment, the ghosts of her mother and her friends appear, surrounding her, and they plead for her help, saying that it hurts. After a while, Drajat asks Lela to open the door, but inside, we see that Lela is tied with barbed wire and struggling. However, when Drajat breaks in, he finds her lying on the floor and brings her back to her senses. He tells her that the body requires an immediate autopsy and asks if she is hiding something. He suspects her of disposing of evidence under the pretext of bathing the bodies. But Lela points out Rika, saying she did everything, and reveals that Rika is Noor's daughter. She confronts Rika and accuses her mother of being a homewrecker, demanding to know what her mother did wrong. Rika tries to calm her down, saying, "These are their sins. Don't make them hers." Saying this, Rika leaves, and as Lela tries to stop her, suddenly many women present become possessed, one by one, and start falling. The rest of the women attack Rika's house, and the scene transitions to years ago, showing Lela's mother and her friends, along with other women, doing the same thing. They break into Rika's house, drag her out of her house, and begin beating her in the same manner. However, it is revealed that while Sati and her friends were involved in torturing Noor, Terry was not with them. Frustrated, Rika screams for them to stop, saying that they did the same thing to her mother many years ago. She acknowledges that this may be her sin, but insists that all of them are also part of it. One woman accuses her of being a killer, just like her mother, and the beating continues. Meanwhile, Sati's spirit approaches Lela and asks her to stop the violence. Lela complies and rushes to intervene, but the crowd doesn't listen to her and starts beating her as well. Arif rushes in to save them, but a rod hits him directly on the head, causing his death. As Lela mourns her brother's death, the villagers disperse, leaving her in sorrow. Time passes, and we see Lela continuing the corpse washing. She takes out a pin from a dead body, and it becomes clear that she has now cursed the village. Thanks for facing the frights with us. If you survived this video, drop a like, summon that subscribe button, and brace yourself for more horror. Until next time, stay spooked.